Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started here in just a minute, so if we can have everyone's attention. Welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Colette Curtis. I'm the assistant to the town manager for the town of Paradise. And tonight at this community meeting, we're going to be talking about the tree program, the Hazardous Tree Removal Program, as well as insurance. So we're going to get started with a quick update from the town of Paradise and talk a little bit about the tree program. So first, I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about some really important things that are going on in the town of Paradise. And on the top of everyone's mind, of course, as we enter fire season, is fire safety and keeping Paradise fire safe as we recover. So it's really important to know that the town of Paradise continues to work with CAL FIRE in defensible space in the town. As you may have seen, when you drive through Paradise, there is a lot of work going on in removing trees and removing weeds and other fire hazards, and that's looking really good. We're very encouraged by that. And we just want to remind everyone that it is the responsibility of property owners, whether they are in town or not in town, to make sure that their properties remain fire safe. It's really important. That is extremely important for the town to make sure that our residents here are safe as we're in fire season. I also wanted to mention the Doom the Broom program. So as you may or may not know, Scotch broom is a plant that unfortunately thrives in the town of Paradise and is an extreme fire danger. And we have seen after the fire that Scotch broom has been growing back very rapidly. So you'll see it all throughout town. And it has always been a big fire danger in the town of Paradise and something that we have focused on for many years. You should know that the Butte Fire Safe Council has a program called Doom the Broom. So they are going to be refocusing efforts on that program to help eradicate that. But it's something I wanted to mention for property owners to keep an eye out for. It may be popping up on your property, and that really, we see that as something that you should focus on to remove as quickly as possible while it's small, because it is an extreme fire danger, and it's an invasive species, so it's great to get that out as soon as you can. I also wanted to take a moment to talk about economic development in the town of Paradise. We hear a lot about our residents that are rebuilding, and we are so excited about that, and our residents who are coming back home. We are also excited about our businesses that are coming back, reopening, and the new businesses that are coming to Paradise. So we know it's going to be a long effort to maintain the businesses that are here now and help encourage the economy in Paradise to thrive. And so the town of Paradise is very focused on supporting our businesses. We're going to be, over the next months and years, targeting businesses to court them, to bring them to the town of Paradise, businesses that will help support our recovery. We'll also be looking into offering incentives for businesses to come to Paradise to make this a thriving community for our residents and for our businesses. So I just wanted to mention that so you know that is a top priority for the Paradise Town Council, and staff is working very hard on that effort. I also wanted to mention that the town of Paradise continues to work with our cooperator agencies. So those agencies are agencies like the Paradise Irrigation District, the Paradise Unified School District, Northern Recycling and Waste Services. We have always worked together very closely, and during our recovery period, we work even more closely to make sure that we have a good plan to support our residents as we recover. We met just recently to talk about the projects that we are all working on jointly, and it's a really positive and exciting thing to get together with these cooperator agencies because we all are focused on the same goal, which is the recovery and support for the town of Paradise and our residents. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to move on and talk a little bit about hazardous trees and the hazardous tree removal program. So first of all, I think I should start with why did we even pursue a hazardous tree removal program in the first place? This is something that the town of Paradise and Butte County have been working with Cal OES and FEMA on since the days after the fire. We recognized right away that there were hundreds of thousands of hazardous trees that were in the town of Paradise and Butte County that would be a barrier to rebuilding. And it was extremely important that we go after that program. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We'll also talk about what is a hazardous tree, what is that definition. There is a set definition. It's important to understand that. And I also want to mention, this has been announced already, but we have been officially approved that 99.7% of parcels in the town of Paradise are eligible for the state hazardous tree removal program. So at first we really just had properties that were on public roads, but now we have added private roads as well. There are a few properties that are not eligible, but nearly every property in the town of Paradise is eligible. Butte County has a little bit of a different eligibility, and I think Butte County will talk about that when they speak in a few moments. But it's important to know, in the town of Paradise, nearly every parcel is eligible for the program. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about insurance and what is important to know about insurance and knowing your policy as we go into the hazardous tree removal program. Okay, so why did we pursue the hazardous tree removal program? So like I said, this has been a top priority since the days after the fire, understanding that these hundreds of thousands of dead and dying trees would be a barrier to rebuilding and to our recovery. We also understand that many Paradise residents were underinsured, and even those who had sufficient insurance, the insurance coverage for tree removal was not sufficient to remove the number of trees that were on most properties in the town of Paradise. We heard that over and over again from our residents, and our residents came to our town council and said, we need help with this barrier to rebuilding. We cannot recover if we can't have any help removing our trees. And so we took that message, we heard that loud and clear, and we took that message to Cal OES and FEMA to make the case that in our instance, in our disaster, hazardous tree removal was vital to being able to rebuild. Next slide. Okay, so what is a hazardous tree? This is the definition of a hazardous tree. And this graphic here shows the way that eligibility is determined. So a hazard tree is a tree that was so damaged by the campfire that, in the opinion of a professional arborist and or forester, it will fall within 5 years onto a public or private road or a public property. In determining whether it will fall onto a public or private road or public property, the arborist or forester will take the height of the tree, double that, and to see if it would reach a public road, private road, or public property. So that is how that is determined, and that is what a hazard tree is. So we hear a lot of questions from people about, well, are all of my trees going to be removed? What about my healthy trees? Healthy trees are not affected by this program. This is just for hazardous trees which pose a threat to fall because they were so damaged by the campfire. So healthy trees are just fine. Okay, next slide. And finally, I'll talk just a little bit about insurance, really as a preface to what our representative from United Policyholders, who's also here tonight, will talk a little bit about. So it's important to understand that insurance is an aspect of the state hazardous tree removal program. And this is part of the reason, like I mentioned, that we pursued this program in the first place, was to help residents use the insurance money that they have to leverage and to remove as many trees as possible. Now, it's important to know that policies are individual and unique, so it's very important that you understand your own policy and talk to your agent to understand what exactly is covered. However, your insurance, so the state program may help you leverage your insurance proceeds to remove more trees than you would have been able to remove without the program. So it is a leveraging idea, and I think that United Policyholders in Butte County will talk a little bit more about how that works. But that is really the message that I want to get across tonight, is that it's really about leveraging and helping individuals who maybe don't have insurance, don't have enough insurance, to leverage what they do have to remove as many hazardous trees as we can. So United Policyholders is a group that is here tonight. They'll talk about who they are and what they do. They're an excellent resource for working with your insurance, whether it's about the hazardous tree removal program or anything related to your insurance. They're a really great resource for our residents and have been since right after the fire, as well as your insurance agent. So it's important, again, to understand your own individual policy, and your insurance agent is a great person to go to for that. And I want to mention that after the presentations tonight, we do have a number of insurance agents who will be here at tables to answer individual questions and give information if you're interested in talking with them. And then for questions, so questions specifically about the state program and the private program, the best way to get those questions answered is by calling the ROE information line, which is there on the screen, 530-552-3030. And so now I'm going to introduce Casey Hatcher from Butte County to talk about Butte County's program.
Thank you, Colette. Great information. I will just keep it focused on insurance related to both debris removal and tree removal and some of the frequent questions that we've gotten. The hazard tree removal program in the unincorporated area mirrors the program in the town and the options that are available through both the government program or options for removing the trees yourself. It's a little different in the county areas as to the private roads that are eligible, but we're excited that there is now a public-facing map at ButteCountyRecovers.org as well as Make It Paradise where people can see if they have a parcel that has a requirement to enroll in a program, or you can always call the Right of Entry Center. I just wanted to talk a little bit in the ROE for the tree removal, the government tree removal program. On page 2, there is a reference to insurance coverage. It's really similar to if you participated in debris removal in the government program and completed an ROE for that. It talks about whether or not you have specific coverage for tree removal or if you do not have specific coverage for tree removal. And it really outlines how the collection of any insurance proceeds that you have for this activity will take place. Really, what's happening here is that the federal government has a requirement that we not duplicate any private benefit that you have with taxpayer dollars. And so we are required to make sure that if you have an insurance benefit or any other private benefit specifically for tree removal, that we collect that back from you, as well as for debris removal. So I'll just give you an update that the government the government debris removal program has completed, and we estimate that within about a year we will have all of the costs from the state, and then at that point the county will be able to invoice both insurance companies and property owners to collect any debris removal proceeds. We do know that some people have already turned those into the county, but we don't anticipate invoicing for those costs until we receive all those costs from the state. We still get a lot of questions about that as to what we will collect. So we will only collect the amount that you have for debris removal, or if you don't have a specified amount and you have an umbrella policy and you have some amount left over after you've moved or you've rebuilt, then we will look at the potential for collecting that. Our goal is not really to collect insurance proceeds back from you. We need to do our part on behalf of the state and federal government that have assisted with this program. But we want, if your insurance policy says that you can use those proceeds for other things, maybe you removed a fence in debris removal, or you cut a tree that wasn't eligible for this program in tree removal, then you can save those receipts and submit them and deduct them from what is owed back to the county. But to Colette's point, it's really important that you talk with your agent and review your policy, because that's what our staff will be doing, or our contractor will be doing when they're doing this insurance collection. They will be looking at your policy to see what it is that you were provided for tree removal, and then they will be collecting that back from you. So it's your responsibility to talk with your agent and understand if you're using it for the replacement of shrubs or grinding of stumps, that your policy and your agent says that that's an eligible expense and can be deducted when the county ultimately does the collection of insurance proceeds. We don't anticipate that we will have the costs for tree removal to do the collection of insurance until a year after the mission is completed for tree removal. And so I will defer to my state partners from OES as to when that will be, but they've always said that will be about a 9-month mission. So then that would be, again, a 1-year delay to get all those costs, and then come to collect those either from the property owner if that's already been dispersed, or from the insurance company directly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Casey, for that great information. And I just want to reiterate something that she said there about the public-facing map. That is a huge announcement. I'm really excited about that the public-facing map is available now on ButteCountyRecovers.org and Make It Paradise. It is. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Oh, no, I didn't. I was letting you make the big announcement. So I'm just so excited about it. I want to say it again because it's great. We've been waiting for that for a little while, and it's going to be a great resource for anyone who is curious whether their property is eligible for this program or not, wants to know where they fit in this program. You can go to that map and find your property and see whether you're eligible. So that, again, is on ButteCountyRecovers.org and MakeItParadise.org as well. And so now I will introduce Tina Walker from Cal OES to talk about the government program.
Thank you, everybody. So the government tree removal program actually has two functioning parts of it once we get going. The first part of it will be the assessment and monitoring of the trees. So the first wave of that will be crews coming out to your parcels and assessing the trees. And that will involve arborists and certified foresters, both certified arborists and foresters, to not only look at the individual trees on your property, but also the environment of your trees. So we're not going to, like Casey mentioned and Colette mentioned, healthy trees are not going to be marked for removal. In fact, the assessment is going to be dedicated to just focusing on evaluating each tree and identifying and marking trees that meet the hazardous tree criteria. And then the second wave of that operation will be actually the tree removal operation, where a different crew comes in and then reads those markings and removes the hazardous trees. And we plan on the operation from start to finish to take about 9 months. Right now, we're waiting for notice to proceed on the first wave, the assessment, and that should be happening very shortly in the next several days or so. And then the invitation to bid for the tree removal contract, which will then get boots on the ground to remove the trees after the assessment has begun. But we're not just waiting for those to be in place. Cal OES has the Tree Removal Operations Center located here in Chico, where the D-Rock was located, same office. And we've already stood up an incident management team consisting of about 33 personnel, and we're busy working on transportation management plans to mitigate as much traffic impact as we can through your community while we work on removing your trees, making sure that we maintain safe operations and keep the traffic flowing as well as we can so that you can carry on your daily lives and business with the least amount of interruption. But we know, right, that operations can be inconvenient. So when we kick up that operation, I just thank you in advance for your patience as we work through that and get that work done for you. So it will be inconvenient, but we're doing our best to get a good transportation management plan in place. And we're working with state and local representatives. So we've got Caltrans and we've got local law enforcement as well as state law enforcement looking at that traffic management plan. And then it'll be refined as soon as we get the crews in the field. And we're also working on an environmental protection plan that ensures that while we're working through your properties, that we're making sure that we're not disrupting any indigenous species or migratory species, and that we're taking care of your waterways and your animals in nature, making sure we're taking that into consideration as we remove your trees. So there's lots of work going on with the incident management team so that we're ready to roll when we get our crews on the ground. And like I said, that should be within the next several weeks. And the operation, barring any unforeseen circumstances, shouldn't take much more than 9 months. And then, as Casey mentioned, then the next step is the collection of the insurance, but that won't happen until we're completely finished with all the work on your parcels and we can get that paperwork solidified, finalized, and transmitted to the county. So that's my update on the tree removal operation.
Thank you so much, Tina. Okay, and so next we have Sandra Watts from United Policyholders, who's going to talk about insurance. And I just want to let you know that if you do have any questions, please hold them until the end. And Sandra, as well as some insurance agents from many different companies, will be here tabling afterwards to take your individual questions. Questions about insurance tend to be really specific to your own situation, and so they really are best answered on a one-on-one basis. Thank you. Sandra.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sandra Watts. I'm looking for my thing. I'm here with Mark Dillman, who's our staff attorney. We're with United Policyholders. So I'm going to specifically address the insurance portion of this. It's going to be kind of a little technical, but I think my goal here is to help you guys understand where to look in your policies for the coverage information that's going to, trigger the coverage for your trees and give you a little debris information so that you know sort of where to look and what questions to ask your insurance representatives. So go ahead. I want to tell you a little bit about United Policyholders. You guys know who we are, mostly? We're a nonprofit. I am an ex-claims adjuster and claims manager for State Farm for 25 years, and I now work for United Policyholders, and this is what I do. I go from place to place helping people with their insurance claims after a disaster. So, next one, please. And about us, we are a nonprofit. We are completely funded by grants and donations, so we don't take any money from companies. We've been around since 1991, so this is what we do full time. Next. Okay, so this slide here is just, you guys hopefully by this time should be familiar with your declarations page. This is sort of the page that you refer back to when we get talking about, there's a bunch of 5% limits in your policy. So I've put this here just so that this is when we refer to a declarations page. It's the summary page where your coverages are all outlined. Okay, next one. Can't see Katie, so. Okay, so when you go to look for these coverages that I'm talking about, and I've just taken, this is a CSAA policy that I've taken. I know a lot of people have CSAA insurance in this area, so the first few slides here are from that. What we're looking for, and for some reason my highlighting didn't come through, but if you look and see where additional coverages, so you want to go to your table of contents, look for additional coverages, and that's where you're going to find these specific coverages that we're going to talk about. So next, okay. So the first one in here, and you guys have probably gone through this with the Consolidated Debris Removal Program. The reason that I have this in here is because there's some relationship between debris removal and trees, shrubs, and plants in some policies. One of the things I'm going to say is that one of the biggest variations between policies is the debris removal provision and the trees, shrubs, and plants provision. So what I'm going to give you tonight is most likely, even if you're a CSAA customer, it might not read exactly like this, but this is where you want to go. So basically, you want to read this. You want to read debris removal, and you want to see, does it talk about trees and shrubs and plants, okay? Most of them don't. Some of them do, but you want to read it. And then you want to find out if your policy, if you see almost at the bottom there, if it has an additional 5% limit. So when they talk about in the program, in your right of entry forms, a specific limit for certain things like debris or trees, that's what we're looking at there. Okay? So the next slide, please. Okay, this specific policy talks about some trees, okay? We'll pay reasonable expenses for fallen trees from the resident's premises if you don't have other coverage or if the tree isn't covered by the policy. The key here is, this seems like a very optimistic a way to read it, but these insurance policies are contracts. The bolded, see how it's bolded, residence premises? we go to the next slide, we have a definition. Anytime you see bold terms in your policy, that means that that term is defined in the policy. And you go back to your definitions and say, okay, what does that mean? So sorry for the way this read, it was on a page break, but in this one, residence premises means your house. So can we back up? I can't see Katie. I don't know where she is, but oh, there she is. Hi. Could we back up, please? Yeah, there we go. So if the tree falls on the house, then they're going to pay for it. So the only real situation I could think of for you guys is if for some reason during the fire a tree fell on the house, the cost to remove it could be separated out by this. You see what I'm saying? And you get a little extra coverage. So one more, next. Okay, so this tree has to fall on your house. Okay, next one, please. Okay, so that's that. So it looks a little bit better than it is. So I don't know how many people actually had a tree fall on their house, but that's really the only situation that specific clause would trigger. Okay, so now we're in the actual trees, shrubs, and plants policy language. This is also in additional coverage, so the same section of the policy. And this is a pretty common clause. This, again, is the AAA clause. And it talks about they cover the trees and shrubs and plants on the residence premises, so that's on the property, for loss against the following perils. We've got fire and lightning, explosion. So you guys got fire. It's triggered, okay? Then if we go down, the limit of liability for this coverage shall not exceed 5% of the limit of liability that applies to coverage A. So go back to that first slide with the numbers on it. You take your coverage A amount, you multiply it by 5%. That gives you your trees, shrubs, and plants coverage. This one doesn't talk about what it's for. So these historically, and I have another example. This is for everything involving trees, shrubs, and plants. So it involves if you have to take them out, if you have to replace them, anything that you have to do for it. This is the coverage. It limits to $500 for any one item. This is very common. So this is very common language here. So let's go to the next one and see what the next one. Okay, so this is a different policy. This is a CIG policy that I took it from, which had the same basic lead-in that was on the last slide. This one adds a little bit more. This talks about reasonable expenses up to $1,000 to, if it falls and different things. Or if so this one's a little different. It doesn't have to fall on your house, but if it's going to block a driveway or block a ramp or, handicap thing, it adds another $1,000 worth of coverage. So really what this is intended to show you is the vast differences in the policies. There's no real way to kind of go through them. I would say that most policies, probably 85 or 90% of the policies, are going to have your 5%, and it's for everything to do with trees, shrubs, and plants, and that's it, which is, I'm sure, disappointing to most people. The history on that is that these homeowners policies were, intended for suburban residences where you have a house with your tree in front and some bushes and things like this, and they didn't really contemplate, living in a forest. And it's not coverage that you can go out and buy. You can buy timber coverage if you're in the business. It's sort of like crop insurance, but as a homeowner, you can't just go and buy it. So it's unfortunately something that's a really sort of exposed risk to people who have property with all these trees. So go to the next slide, please. Oh, go back one more. The one thing I'm going to say is the debris removal. Sometimes some of the policies say that the extra 5% applies to every coverage. Okay? So you've got 5% for your house, 5% for your contents, 5% for your other structures, and some of them give you 5% for your trees, shrubs, and plants, specifically for debris removal. Okay? So it's not going to be much because it's going to be 5% of 5%. So we're not talking a lot of money here, but every little bit helps. So what you need to do is go find this in your policy, try to read it, and then really make your adjuster explain it to you. Ask them in writing to say specifically, how much money do I have for trees, shrubs, and plants? How much money do I have for the debris removal of trees, shrubs, and plants? And how much have I been paid so far? Okay, so really force them. Some people, you know, the adjusters aren't that responsive. You need to just keep after them and make them do that, okay? And so I think that the people who have, I couldn't find an exact example, but the people who have the 5% over all the coverages, a lot of times you have to ask for that because until these big wildfires started happening, these were unusual situations where you lost, where you lost everything. So some of the adjusters aren't as good at doing that, okay? So, and we will be in the next room. I just want to give you a couple slides. We've got some, we have a dedicated campfire page for those of you guys who haven't been to our website. Our website's uphelp.org. And if you go to that home page, there's a campfire page, and if you click on it, we have things on debris removal. We have a lot of different help in there. And as a side note, if I can make a really quick plug, one more, please, Katie. Yeah, we've got a couple things. If you're in a dispute with your insurer over the amount to rebuild your house, think about this. We have flyers. And then the next one is we're also having a workshop for contractors to help you get your building stuff through. And then the last slide, thank you. We're funded by the North Valley Community Foundation, Be Strong, and the Entertainment Fund. So anybody who has questions will be in the other room. We're going to San Francisco, so I'm not going to stay too late tonight, but we're happy to answer any specific questions. And thank you for having us.
Okay, thank you so much, Sandra, for coming and giving that great information. It's very helpful. And so finally, we have Vice Mayor Zuccolillo, who is going to be giving an update on some work that's been going on with Insurance Commissioner Lara.
Good evening. The other week ago, Commissioner Lara, for those that don't know, he's the insurance commissioner for the state, and he's made many visits up here to Paradise and the Ridge. And one of the big problems that we're having, not only here, but in a lot of areas that are in the mountains, is the insurance. And those of us that had insurance are finding that the insurance that used to be $1,500 is now $6,000, or you can't get it. So Commissioner Lara has, along with a couple of the Assembly members, is proposing some legislation where the concept of it is if you do certain things to harden your home, that you would be able to get affordable insurance, similar to a good driving discount. Now, of course, the devil is in the details. It sounds good. The insurance companies are not quite on board with the idea yet, and they're not quite sold on it yet. And then there's also a competing bill that some of the Republican members of the Assembly are also putting forward. But what they're trying to do is add some clarity on how insurance is established. After the fire now, we all probably know what our fire line scores are and all these things that we never used to know. But it's sometimes, your house will be like a fire line 2, but across the street could be a 4, and you don't know why. So they're going to try to simplify that and basically say, here's the logarithms and how these are created, and here's steps you can take. So if you do harden your home, if you create defensible space, if you you use certain siding on your home, if you put on the vents that close when there's a fire, that you're going to be able to get insurance. So those details are being worked out. They're supposed to working its way through the legislative process, and things in California tend to take a little bit of time, but cross your fingers. But I have to say, I have been impressed on how much he's been up here and how he seems to really taking a proactive role in trying to get us affordable insurance, not only for here, but for other areas that are affected. So I don't think he's letting go on this, so hopefully what he'll be proposing will be something that'll help us not only, stay in our homes, but it's affecting home sales, it's affecting all sorts of things. So that'll be coming down the pipeline. So as I get more information, I'll be sharing it on the different communications. But I just wanted to give you that update. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Zuccolillo. Okay, and so that concludes the presentation portion of this evening. Thank you all so much for coming, and I want to thank our presenters as well for giving this great information tonight. I want to remind you we have our next community information meeting on Tuesday, April 7th. It'll be right back here at 6 p.m. And if you do have specific questions, we'll have United policyholders and individual insurance companies here in the gymnasium to answer those questions for you. Thank you so much.